Day 25 of the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just another day in court. It was an explosion. From the moment the session began, the atmosphere was thick with tension, a palpable anger radiating from the judge's bench, a new aggression from the defense, and a jury forced, once again, to confront the graphic reality of Diddy's alleged freakoffs. Today, we saw a juror rip off his headphones in disgust. We heard audio from Diddy's sex tapes bleeding out into the gallery. We witnessed a judge so furious he threatened to seize phones and hold attorneys in contempt. And we saw the defense launch a calculated counteroffensive, attempting to reframe years of evidence as a consensual, if kinky, love affair. This is a deep dive into Day 25. We're going to break down the charts, the cross-examinations, the immunity deals, and a critical closed-door meeting about a juror that could derail this entire trial. The prosecution is building its RICO case, brick by painstaking brick. But today, the defense came prepared with a sledgehammer. The question is, did they manage to crack the foundation? Let's get into it. Part 1. The Judge's Fury. The day began not with testimony, but with a tirade. Judge Jed Rakoff came in hot, his usual mild-mannered demeanor completely gone. He was, by all accounts from those in the room, apoplectic. The cause? A leak to the media. He informed the courtroom that details from a sealed hearing on Friday had mysteriously found their way into the press over the weekend. While he didn't name the outlet, sources point towards TMZ. An article was reportedly published and then quickly pulled, but the damage was done. Now, what was in this leak? On the record, it's unclear, but the buzz in the courthouse corridors centered on juror number 7. This is the alternate juror who recently replaced a dismissed juror. The rumor is that he received a mysterious text message asking if he was the juror getting bounced from the case. This is a massive breach of jury integrity. The very idea that someone from the outside could identify and contact a sitting juror is a judge's worst nightmare. It compromises the entire process. Judge Rakoff's tone made it crystal clear this wasn't a minor infraction. He looked directly at lead prosecutor Maureen Comey and defense attorney Tenny Garagos. Well, he said, his voice sharp, somebody's lying. He then issued a stark warning. The buck stops with you. He told them that if another leak happens, he would not hesitate to haul people in for sworn testimony. Phones could be seized. Contempt of court charges could be on the table. This, he stated, is your only warning. To understand the gravity of this, you have to understand courtroom decorum. Judges, especially federal judges, are the ultimate authority. They are measured, deliberate, and rarely lose their cool. When a judge gets this angry, it sends a shockwave through the proceedings. Every officer of the court, from the prosecutors to the defense to the bailiffs, stands at attention. Judge Rakoff wasn't playing. He was making it known that he would not let his courtroom be turned into a media circus. Part 2. The prosecution's paper trail. Once the jury was brought in, Special Agent Deirdre Penland of Homeland Security took the stand to continue her testimony. Her job is to be the government's tour guide, connecting the mountain of evidence we've seen so far and drawing a clear roadmap for the jury. A roadmap leading directly to charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. She did this with charts, rows and rows of data on what the government has dubbed the freakoff chart. It's a detailed breakdown of dates, locations, flight records, and alleged participants tied to the most disturbing accusations in this case. Agent Penland pointed out a few key takeaways. New York City was the most frequent location for these alleged events, appearing 14 separate times. More importantly, out of 71 total entries on the chart, the government found matching flight records for 20 of them. Let's be clear about what that means. Those are the receipts. In nearly a third of the alleged freakoffs, federal agents were able to independently verify who traveled where and when. And since it is a federal crime to transport someone across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, this evidence is the bedrock of the sex trafficking charge. It's not just someone's word against Diddy's. It's airline manifests and travel itineraries. Next, Agent Penland presented 3 more charts. These ones tying Diddy's American Express spending to the freakoffs and, fascinatingly, to hotel damage. The prosecution's argument is that Diddy used a web of aliases and assistants to book rooms and pay for the aftermath. One charge from February 2013 showed a $500 bill for carpet and drape damage at the prestigious Beverly Hills Hotel. The reservation was under the name Philippines, one of Diddy's assistants. Another, from December 2015 at the L'Hermitage in Los Angeles, was for $950 to cover linen damage and deep cleaning. That one was booked by Ryan Lopez, another assistant. But then came the big one, the jaw-dropper. An invoice listed under the alias Frank Black, a name previously linked directly to Diddy. Are you ready for this? The damage amount was $46,786. Let that sink in. $46,786. The hotel described it as covering petty cash loss and DA penthouse damage. What on earth could possibly happen in a penthouse to cause nearly $50,000 in damages? That's more than the price of a new car. The prosecution wants the jury to imagine the sheer level of chaos and destruction that must have occurred. Agent Penland then showed the corresponding Amex statement. The balance wasn't just on one card. It had been split across at least 9 different accounts, all listed as care of Bad Boy Entertainment. The point here is devastatingly simple. The prosecution argues these weren't isolated party fouls. They were a recurring, expensive pattern. A pattern of using assistants' names, using fake names, and, crucially, using Diddy's corporate empire as a financial tool to clean up the evidence of illegal activity. This is the E in RICO enterprise. Before we dive into the defense's explosive cross-examination and the jury's reaction to watching Diddy's porn for a second time, let's take a moment to talk about data. The prosecution is using data, flight records, text logs, credit card statements, to build their case. But in our own lives, our data is constantly being collected and sold by brokers we've never even heard of, leading to endless spam and scams. All right, with our own digital lives secured, let's get back to the timeline of events the prosecution wants the jury to see as undeniable proof of a criminal enterprise. Part 3. The Intercontinental Hotel Timeline. The focus then shifted to the single most damning piece of public evidence, the March 2016 assault on Cassie Ventura in a Los Angeles hotel hallway. For the second time in this trial, the jury was shown the horrifying surveillance video. But this time, the government wrapped it in a detailed timeline, condensing hundreds of pages of evidence into a single chronological narrative. Agent Penland walked the jury through it, day by day, hour by hour. March 4, 2016, the day before the assault. Diddy calls Cassie. She calls him back. A man named Garen from an escort service called Cowboys for Angels texts Cassie. Fun tonight. Cassie replies, yes, L.A. They coordinate. An escort named Skylar texts Cassie for the first time. March 5, 2016, the day of the assault. The attack happens in the hotel hallway. In the immediate aftermath, Cassie takes 3 selfies. In them, she's wearing sunglasses, and her lip appears swollen. Then, the text barrage begins. Diddy writes, call now. Cassie texts back, mentioning she spoke to security and tells Diddy, you are sick for thinking it's okay. Please stay away from me. She references her black eye and fat lip. Then comes Diddy's alleged manipulation campaign. He texts that the cops are there. I'm about to be arrested. One message reads. This was, as the original report noted, a complete fabrication, a pressure tactic. Another message. If you don't pick up, you'll never hear my voice again. The call log shows a flurry of missed calls from Diddy to Cassie. March 6th to March 9th, the cleanup operation. This is where the racketeering element comes into focus. Diddy is texting his security, D-Rock, checking on Cassie's whereabouts. He places his first call to Eddie Garcia, the hotel security guard who had the surveillance footage. This is the beginning of the alleged cover-up. Meanwhile, Diddy's chief of staff, Christina KK Coram, is also in motion. She texts Cassie about a fashion fitting, an attempt, prosecutors say, to maintain a public image of normalcy. Crucially, KK also texts Eddie Garcia, asking for a copy of his driver's license and the IDs of 2 other security guards. The prosecution argues this was to get their information, to control them, to ensure their silence. Over the next few days, calls between Diddy and Eddie Garcia continue. The prosecution's narrative is that this wasn't just damage control. It was a coordinated effort by Diddy's inner circle, his enterprise, to suppress evidence and intimidate a witness, all while the victim's bruises were still fresh. We know how this ended. Eddie Garcia testified he handed over the tape in exchange for a paper bag filled with $50,000 cash. Part 4. The defense strikes back. Then, it was the defense's turn. And Diddy's lawyer, Tenny Garagos, came out swinging. Her target was the prosecution's entire narrative, and her weapon was the very evidence the government had presented. First, she attacked the freakoff chart, calling it sloppy and misleading. She pointed to an entry that listed Diddy as the only attendee of a freakoff, while phone records showed Cassie was in South Africa at the time. She pointed to other entries that didn't list Diddy at all. This, Garagos argued, was proof the government was just filling in blanks, making assumptions without evidence. Agent Penland pushed back, saying that just because Diddy wasn't named didn't mean he wasn't there. But Garagos had planted a seed of doubt. She was trying to convince the jury that the government's neat and tidy chart was more guesswork than fact. If the chart falls apart, the pattern required for a RICO conviction starts to look a lot less like a pattern. Then came the moment everyone was bracing for. Each member of the jury was handed a set of headphones. It was time to watch Diddy's porn again. For over 15 minutes, the defense played graphic, explicit clips from the freakoffs. Their strategy is a high-risk, high-reward gamble. They want the jury to see these tapes and conclude that what the government calls abuse was, in these moments, consensual adult behavior. Filmed, yes, but willingly. Forcing a jury to sit through this content is bold. But the defense is betting it will neutralize the prosecution's narrative of coercion. After the videos, Garagos moved to her next line of attack, the text messages. She read them out loud, one by one. But she focused on messages the prosecution had conveniently left out of their timeline. Messages that painted a very different picture of Cassie Ventura. Garagos's goal was clear: show Cassie not as a victim, but as a willing, enthusiastic, and at times, even the primary instigator of these sexual encounters. After one alleged freak-off, Cassie texted Diddy she keeps having sexy flashbacks of yesterday. When Diddy brought up a new session, Cassie replied she was worried he'd do it with someone else, and then started checking the availability of the escorts herself. In one exchange, she promised Diddy, "I will be the nastiest freak bitch in the world to make up for it." When Diddy suggested they skip a freak-off, it was Cassie who allegedly pushed back, texting, "I'm feeling myself and I'm really horny." On Father's Day, she called him the most extraordinary man. Weeks later, she texted simply, "HM, I'm horny." The defense's aha moment came when Garagos returned to the timeline of the hotel assault. She pointed out that on March 4th, the day before the assault, the prosecution's timeline showed phone calls, but omitted text messages where Cassie was allegedly sexually explicit, writing in one, "Baby, I want to freak off so bad." Agent Penland admitted she hadn't seen those messages before. And when asked who selected the text that did make it into the official timeline, she admitted it wasn't her. It was the prosecution's trial team. This was a direct hit. The defense was suggesting to the jury that they were being misled, shown only one side of the story. Of course, on redirect, prosecutors fired back. They pulled up a message from Cassie from January 2015, over a year before the hotel assault. In it, she wrote, "Nothing good comes out of freak-offs anymore. You treat me like you're Ike Turner." For anyone who knows music history, that name is a gut punch. Ike Turner, the notorious abuser of the legendary Tina Turner. The prosecution wanted that comparison, Ike Turner, to be the last thing ringing in the jury's ears. Part 5. The view from the jury box. So, what was the impact of all this on the jury? Forcing them to watch those graphic videos a second time was a risky move, and based on reports from inside the courtroom, the reactions were varied and intense. Those present in the gallery described an atmosphere of profound awkwardness. This time, the volume on the headphones was apparently louder, and for a moment, Audio from the tapes was audible to the entire room before a bailiff had the volume lowered. The jurors' faces told the story. One older woman was described as looking deeply uncomfortable, often covering her mouth and face, her expression a clear mask of disgust. She did not want to be there. Another male juror had a more dramatic reaction. As each clip ended, he would reportedly snatch his headphones off his head with a sharp, aggressive motion, as if he couldn't wait for it to be over. His body language screamed, "I'm done with this." But not everyone reacted with disgust. Observers noted another juror who seemed intrigued. He would lean in, getting closer to his monitor, as if to get a better look. At one point, he was even seen looking around at his fellow jurors, with an expression that seemed to say, "Are you all seeing this?" This is the gamble for the defense. Are they normalizing this behavior in the jury's eyes, or are they simply disgusting them and hardening their resolve against Diddy? The juror ripping off his headphones in anger is a terrible sign for the defense. The juror leaning in with curiosity? That might be exactly what they were hoping for. Part 6. Loose ends and the road ahead. Before the day wrapped, a few other crucial things happened. A young man named Brendan Paul, an alleged drug mule for Diddy, briefly took a stand. He invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. In response, the government granted him full immunity in exchange for his testimony. He's expected to take the stand soon and tell the jury everything he knows about Diddy's alleged drug network. And in a bizarre side note, while Brendan Paul was on the stand, Diddy's lawyers asked if their client could be excused from the courtroom. The reason? He wanted to go to a side room to finish watching the freakoff videos. Let that sink in. The defendant in a federal racketeering trial chose to spend his time in court watching his own porn. Finally, after the jury was dismissed, Judge Rakoff ordered a closed-door proceeding. This was likely to address the ongoing issue with juror number 7 and the leaked text message. The fact that the courtroom was sealed suggests this is a serious, developing situation that could have major implications for the trial's future. Here's where we stand. The prosecution says they expect to rest their case by this Friday. The defense has told the judge they will need only 2 to 5 days to present their case. We are rapidly approaching the finish line. Day 25 was a brutal, strategic battle. The prosecution solidified its paper trail of a criminal enterprise, while the defense fought to recharacterize the central relationship of the case as consensual. But the real story may have been in the jury box, in the looks of disgust, anger, and curiosity. The stage is set for the final act. But in a trial this explosive, the biggest bombshells may be yet to come.